So now you've decided that you've turned into what exactly? So if you're a student turning into a professional, why you might want to change your wording because it will change your focus and why that all matters. So let's get into it, shall we? So this is what we're going to cover. The challenge, why this might not help if you talk about turning into something. If you're a student turning into a professional. 2, we're going to talk about the action. What can you do to rephrase this and why that will matter? 3, the results that will make the difference. And then 4, I've got an example on what happened when I had a conversation with a graduate about this sort of thing. So let me tell you a story. If you're turning from an X into a Y, from a student into a professional, from this job title to that job title, I get it. You're essentially saying, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, that you have a background, a history, you've worked before, so you're jumping into this, or at least you've studied a lot of different things, but you're new to the field, you're new to this job title, and you want them to know that you're still learning. Totally understandable. So, while these are valid points, what could be the reason why I would recommend not going that route? Not stating it as you're a student turning into professional. You're a this turning into that. The reason is that it costs $4,000 per person to onboard somebody to a team. Depends on the size of the company, depends on the role, absolutely get that. And with enough people leaving and all the hiring that has to happen and how that takes from the day-to-day operation, that's about $2 million, more than $2 million a year for different companies. And that is research. You can find it in my footnotes if you're checking out the details of this, but that's a lot of money. They need to get it right because who the heck wants to do this every time? So if you get it wrong, does that mean it's $8,000 a person? So there's a lot of invested in getting this right. So some of the employer worries you should know about is that this could emphasize the fact that this is a risky investment for them. So if I'm going to spend $4,000 to train you, on top of your salary, will you be turning into something else? How do you know this is going to work out? Are you going to test this for 30 days? Is there a money back guarantee? That's kind of the stuff that we're worried about. At the same time you'll see that I listed as 20 questions, but that is also the worry. So if you're turning into something, do you know enough where you're not going to ask me 20 questions? Because if you're going to ask me 20 questions and I got to do my job, I'm essentially doing both jobs. Can you figure it out? Can you hit the ground running? What does that look like? So now I've got all these questions, and rather than answering them in a conversation with you, an employer is just going to move on. So the problem is, if you are turning into their solution, are you there yet? Will it cost extra to get you there? When will you know that you finished turning? So the action on your part is to align your intent with your content. So to do that, instead of saying you're an X turning into a Y, you're a Y with a background in X. You're a professional that has studied X, Y, and Z. So how you frame the message makes all the difference. The result is why that matters. You go from turning to turned. You've already turned. You're a whatever. You're a developer. You're a designer. You're a professional. This means that you come across as confident. Now, you may not always feel it, but the truth is, any adult doesn't always feel it. But it at least comes across as confident if you have one thing that you are and you have all these skills that come along with it. It also means that you have a focus. That helps the employer because they're not trying to figure out what you're telling them, but also it helps you because you could focus in on what it is that you're trying to say to them. If you're a professional, then you're going to position your experience in the light of the profession. Versus if you're focused on being a student, you're going to focus then your content on the things that you're learning and all the school experience, versus trying to rise everything up to the level that you want it to be. Now, I have worked with people who've mentioned that by calling themselves whatever their target job title is, that they are extra careful and extra intentional about making sure that that gets up to the level that they're promoting. So that's worth knowing, that this could cause you to rise to the level that you're trying to be at anyway. So with that said, I love this template. So I just went ahead and filled in the SWOT slide. I see this as strengths, being that it helps you to make your past make sense. It pulls your past in. You don't have to forget all the things that you've learned or what you've worked in the background. You're just not putting that in the foreground. You're now taking your career change and making it front and center. When it comes to your weakness, though, I can understand why this might have you feeling a little insecure about different things. This becomes an opportunity for you to ask the right questions, or for you to illustrate that you can ask the right questions. So if you have concerns, turn that into an opportunity to have a conversation. You're like, I'm concerned that I don't have what it takes to hit the ground running on day one. There's certain things I need to know that are in place. Can I ask a question? Okay, that's part of it. So you want to address those weaknesses, but that's an opportunity to actually ask the right questions. Boom. And we get to the O. Opportunity to show how you learn, especially as a new graduate. You're fresh from the learning train, so you can just describe what that process was like. It's fresh in your memory, and you can take it and run with it, because the truth of it is, there is always something to learn. You knowing how you like to learn, your approach to learning, is the opportunity to take this whole thing from a weakness to a strength. And also, it's going to be important that your approach to learning, your approach to getting stuff done, that you're mindful of that. As a professional, you want to make that clear, because then if you're clear on how you're going to get this job done or how you know you can do this job, then your competition is no longer the threat that you thought it was. And the insecurity of not really embracing the title, those threats go away because you start thinking about what you can do rather than what you can't do. So if I were to summarize this and make this a case study, challenge, action, result. See what I did there? Well, the challenge is you're an X turning into a Y. You're a student turning into a professional. The action on your part is already to be what you said you were turning into. So you're a Y with an X background. You're a professional with a background studying X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. When it comes to results, you now can have more confidence because you can have focus, but it also is received as being confident and focused, which just really quells the concerns of an employer a lot more, so that they can have the real conversation, which is, okay, this is the problem that we're having and why we need to hire. What can you do to help us? So I found this lovely little quote for you. Here it says, and it's from Ellen Stern, the turning point is that moment of naked acceptance of the truth. This is your moment to accept who you are now. This is a moment to celebrate and accept all the hard work that got you to this point, because you're no longer turning. You've arrived, you've turned, past tense, moving on, going forward. So I have this example for you. I did work with somebody who listed themselves as burgeoning data scientist. I was like, interesting. So how will you know when you're a full-on data scientist rather than just burgeoning? Contemplated that. And she was talking to her husband like, man, at what point will I be a data scientist? He's like, what the heck? He went around and asked all of his other coworkers who are all boot camp grads, and he's like, So any of you actually have that same kind of issue? They're like, no. That's probably why there's a gender pay gap. We just tell people what we are. We've graduated, we're doing this work. And so she took the burgeoning off her title and went ahead as a data scientist. And we all lived happily ever after.